In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can import purchases in the form of expenses into QuickBooks Online using Access Online. Before we start, let's have a look inside QuickBooks to see what type of transactions these are and the structure of those transactions. If I was going to create in QuickBooks a purchase, I'd go in here and I'd select expense. And we'd go through and fill these various fields in. Now the first thing you'll notice is the payment account. This is which determines the payment type or purchase type that we're doing. So in this example we would be selecting a credit card and you would select the relevant vendor here or payee and fill in the details across the purchase. Then on this detailed section we'd need to categorize what are the splits for this expense. So, are there telephone expenses and we need to put the amount against that, or are they for items purchased? So are these for goods or services that we would be using in the business for manufacturing or for resale? So that's an important category because in QuickBooks these can be split into two different categories, or it can be a combination of the two on each credit card or check expense. So if I show you a structure of a file that we would use, this is a sample data file that we use to import. You'll notice it's a text file, and then across the top it has a row which describes what we call the header row, which has in each column what's contained. So we have a document number for the purchase or the expense, we have the date as well as the payee and so on. And what you'll notice is this file is split into two areas. So the ones where we've got a line item, these are for the item type purchases, or you have a section here which is for the line account type purchase. So these are splits to expense or general ledger accounts or cost of goods sold accounts in the general ledger. So that's important when you're creating a sample file or structuring your data for importing as purchases. So if we go into Access, we'll create a new AX, and so this will give it a name. So we'll choose a name such as My Credit Card Expenses, and then we're going to choose a file upload, and we're going to select the file that I just showed you, which contains the credit card purchases that we're going to import into QuickBooks. We'll click Save, and that file is uploaded into Access Online. Then we'll select the event we're listening for, so we're going for a file upload. We'll create a purchase type transaction. Now purchase can be either a credit card purchase, a check purchase, or a cash purchase. Then on Next, we go through and we're going to create a map. So this is the columns that are contained in QuickBooks corresponding to the columns that are in our import files. So you saw we had a document number that's going to go against the document number field here. And if you mouse over any of these fields, you get a description of what that field is and what data is expected. Equally on this field, you'll notice there's an exclamation mark. It means that these fields are mandatory and you must map them in order to successfully import. Looking further across, if you don't have a value for this, you could say put in a constant for the cell, and that would apply to all fields when you're entering that transactions into QuickBooks. Equally, we have the ability to have what we call search and replace functions. So if, say for example, you wanted to change the vendor name to something else, if it was spelled differently in your import file compared to what it was spelled in QuickBooks, the ability to do that. The other mandatory field is the bank account that the purchase is made from. So this would be, in this instance, it's a credit card general ledger account that we're importing these transactions to. And then you'll see down this section, we can go through and you can see these are the mappings that are made for the items. So these are whenever we need to map an item field, we put the item name in, the item description and the item amount, as well as the unit price and quantity. And then if we are importing splits for accounts as well, or they could be either or, you could just be importing account type credit card purchases, then you just need to map these fields. So this is where the line amount description goes in, the line account amount, and the line account reference. So this would be the name of the expense account or cost of goods sold account that you're importing to. The final mandatory field that we need to map and provide a value for is the payment type. This is where we tell QuickBooks that these are cash, check, or credit card type purchases, and that's a mandatory field. So we didn't have that in our import file, so I put that in as a constant here. So when you've made all your mappings, you click Save, and we can just review what we've mapped by clicking this Mapped filter here, and you can see all the fields that have been mapped and what values are previewing on those as well. So the next step in the process is to click Next, and Access will preview the data that we're about to import. Now you have the ability to edit this data if you want to, so we can put in we can change this to as we need fit if we need to modify any of these. And then when we finish reviewing, we can select the rows that we want to import. And finally, we click on the Import to QuickBooks, and Access will validate the data before it goes across to make sure it's in the right format, and then begin the process of importing that credit card purchase or check purchase or cash purchase directly into QuickBooks Online company file. So we click on View, Access will open that transaction directly in QuickBooks so you can review to make sure it's what you need. So here is our purchase expense, credit card expense. Here are the accounts, expense accounts that we mapped them against, and also this, because this was a combination of both, there were some items that were purchased as part of this as well. So you have the option also to undo that if you don't want that to appear in QuickBooks. You can click that undo button and it will delete it. Finally, we're happy with that, so we can click Close, and you'll see here the summary of what was brought in today, and you can see the purchase for the credit card charge that we brought in. So that's very simply how you set up a Access Online to import purchases into QuickBooks Online.